So today, what I'm going to be talking about is trauma, what trauma is, how many types of trauma there are, and something that could help you overcome it slightly. This isn't a cure, this isn't watch this and all your trauma will go away. That's definitely not what I'm talking about. If you hear any of this and you relate or identify to any of the things that may have happened or symptoms that come up that you hear, then I would highly encourage you to go talk to a doctor or therapist or somebody about something that you've been through that will know professionally what to do and how to help you. I personally am on medication to help with trauma, so, and I know it's difficult, and I understand it's not the most comfortable thing for your mind to acknowledge, and that's okay. It's not easy to live with trauma or process it, so if you are starting to recognize it, that's a really, really good accomplishment. Keep going, don't stop, because as painful as it gets to think about it, it's the healing process. Like, if you think of it like you're gonna get like a pinprick, the impact and the shock, it hurts, and that's the gaining of the trauma. And then when it comes out, the bleeding and the stinging of the healing, just before the healing, like it comes through. So, and then it stings a little bit before it heals. It's the mind is exactly the same, basically. So don't underestimate yourself and the body's power to heal. And you can do this and you can get through this, and with that I'll get into my research. So, trauma. What is it like? So trauma is the response to a deeply distressing or disturbing event that overwhelms an individual's ability to cope, cause feelings of helplessness, dismantles their sense of self and their ability to feel a full range of emotions and experiences. It does not discriminate, and it is pervasive throughout the world. So that's just a kind of like a quick definition that I got off Google. So what that's trying to say is trauma is when something happens to you that's really, really bad, and trigger warning here as well, such as rape, attempted murder, things like natural disasters like tsunamis, car crashes, all these kind of things that cause something that would allow for the emergency services to be called, or extreme circumstances in which authorities will have to get involved in order to cure the chaos that's going on. So if you are involved in something like that, the memories can be they can appear in your mind's eye. You can think that it's happening around you when it's not. This can come up through symptoms such as headaches, thinking that you're here when thinking that you were there when you're actually somewhere else. You could be in the kitchen and you could think that you were back where you were for a moment period of time. Also coming up through nightmares as well, going to sleep and then getting so immersed in your psyche and your mind that you cannot differentiate between what's going on and what's dream state. So yeah, there are 3 different types of trauma. So the first one is acute, which is acute trauma is when a single event occurs. So if you've had quite a nice, luckily enough to have like quite a nice, easy life, and it's not an easy life. It's not easy at all. So if you are lucky enough to have had that, and then unfortunately one thing were to happen, such as somebody tried to mug you, or any other event, then that can be an acute trauma. You can continue the rest of your life and everything will be fine, but the rest of your life after that one event, you could be thinking back to that one event when you don't want to be thinking back to that one event. The second type of trauma is chronic. So chronic trauma is repeated and prolonged exposure to the situation and trauma that's being caused. So this is going to be things such as child abuse, domestic abuse in abusive relationships, because manipulative people do have the power to captivate their victims and hold them there. In extreme cases, things like entrapping them inside their houses, creating what's the name? I forgot the name. It doesn't matter. So I'll go into the editing and then put it in there. Chronic trauma, prolonged exposure. So if something's happening for a very long time, that's very, very uncomfortable, that is not healthy for you, and you cannot get out, then this can cause a chronic trauma. Third type of trauma is complex. So complex trauma is when you've experienced multiple different experiences of trauma. So if you think acute has happened multiple times in different ways, that can be complex trauma. Complex trauma can also be you've had one thing happen to you, then you've had a different thing happen to you, creating the same trauma effect. So, you know, it just sort of depends on what you've been through. So you could have had one thing one time, and a few years down the line another thing happened down the line, and a few months down the line another thing's happened. That's all sort of like being a little bit too much and overwhelming and all this kind of stuff. That's the different types of trauma. So if you've been through something like this, or somebody's been through something like this, what's going to happen? What's the aftermath of all of this? Well, it can come out in a multitude of different ways. One way being unpredictable emotions. So somebody can be feeling fine one minute, and then you could like drop a coin around them, and then they'll start freaking out, and then or crying, and then having all these different reactions, and you don't know what's going on. But what could have happened is that, say for example, somebody has been robbed, and one time when they were taking their wallet out and then they were to drop a coin, the sound of just before the robber attacked them or hit them, they could associate the coin drop with being hit. And so if you were to accidentally drop a coin around that person, they could have an extreme emotional reaction to that, and it's not your fault, and they may not even be aware that this is a trigger, because sometimes triggers can be very, very subtle, but they can have very, very big impacts on the person who has them. Another way is flashbacks. So like I said in the beginning, so if you're somewhere and then your mind just sort of like chooses to go back to that place because it feels like it's in threat, and because trauma can cause a lot of anxiety. Anxiety naturally just leads to an imbalance in the fight or flight response. So flashbacks are a way of the brain's reminding the person that this is what happened, this is why you need to be alert, remember this happening, even though it could be perfectly safe. So that's why if something bad happens, if somebody were to get taken away from a situation, if they were in public and then their attacker manipulated them into coming out of that location to a secondary location, when that person is re-amalgamated back into the public, whenever they go into certain areas or places, they could be very, very heightened, that the people around them or the things around them could influence them to go to that secondary location again, even though that that person hopefully has been taken out and eliminated by higher authorities, such as police officers and that sort of stuff. If you've gone through something with an attacker, telling the police will help dramatically, immensely. The police can talk to you. They will be very invasive of the situation, but you need to be patient with yourself and them, that they're doing their job in order to make sure that they're making the right decision on perhaps arresting someone, because you are putting, don't worry about that, but just be as honest as possible. And if you can see something happening and it's not coming across, or you don't think you can talk about it, this is also a trauma response. It's nothing to strain yourself about. Just be as honest as possible and they'll do the rest. That's their job. Another way that the trauma shows is strained relationships. So if you've been in a relationship with a domestically abusive partner, then future relationships can be very, very difficult, because you're associating being in a relationship and being with a partner that has done you wrong. So you can be going really, really well and then think, oh no, this is what happened just before this bad thing happened, so I'm going to skip from this relationship, and you know, it's easy done when you have trauma. So you need to be patient with yourself and with others, and that can be a very, very difficult thing for a person with trauma, to think about the future like that, to think about the positives in the future, because the negatives of the past have been so loud that it can almost drown out the positives of the future, which is a very, very unfortunate thing that people with trauma have to go through. And then it goes on to things like physical symptoms such as headaches and nausea and nightmares. Like I said, you know, it can all tie together, and that sort of stuff. So that's a bit of what trauma is, what types there are, what happens about it. I have a little extract here from Boris Cykerlink. I don't know if I said that right, but Boris Cykerlink, so that's BORIS space CYRULNIK. So, and then his work is from 1937 onwards, and it doesn't have an end date. And it says, our history does not determine our destiny. So, like I said previously, when somebody has like trauma brain, their past can scream over what potentially can be in the future. And from their experiences, a person with trauma can take that and insert it in the future, like, this is what's going to happen, this is why I need to extract myself. So this is called positive psychology, this approach. So here's what can happen. So the one that I mentioned just previously, so bad things happen, and then you can feel crushed and inadequate, and then you will continue to suffer. So there's a quote from Orange is the New Black, from Prisoner, that says, suffering is a choice. And I think they are trying to expand upon this. So if you've gone through something, applying what that one person or thing did to you to everything else is unfair for the people involved who want the best for you. And not only that, it can also cause you more turmoil, more pain than you need to go through. So let's go to the more positive reinforcement of how to move forward. It's bad things happen, you can accept the challenge, and you can move forward with your life. So the bad thing can happen, and even though, yes, it's traumatic, you're going to have these physical symptoms, these paranoias. I'm going to be bold and call it a paranoia. And it can affect you and affect you and affect you. Or what you can do is accept the fact this has happened. There's a potential that it could happen again. The statistics of it being repeated, unlikely. However, even if it does get repeated, you have experience in something like this happening, and you've also had emotional experience with trauma itself. So you have a bit of a better understanding anyways, and you have that awareness, because that's what learning is, that's what living is, that's what life is. So you can accept the challenge, and then you can move forward with your life. So this has happened, it could happen again, or you can do what you can now with what you know now to change what could have happened with what it was then. Which is, so basically what I'm trying to say is, now that you have had experience, instead of holding on to it with really, really tight hands, you can just sort of relax with the fact that you have been through something that's quite rare. You have had, well, I say rare, it depends on what it is really, but you've had experience with this, and you have the power to learn, understand and overcome. And if it happens again, you're stronger than where you were, and you can't blame yourself for not being there before, because you were innocent before, and this thing that's corrupted you is only going to help you to rebuild in the future. There's this, I think it's, there's like this there was this ancient Chinese kind of action that was taken, and basically whenever there was something fragile china, let's say it was a vase, if that wasn't worth a lot of money at all, and somebody dropped it to shatters, in the Western world we would usually pick it up and throw it away, but to show, if somebody who dropped it and then felt depressed and thought, this is my fault, it's too broken, I just need to throw it away, what would happen would be, no, we can show you that this still matters, and no matter what it was made of, whether it was just sort of very, very cheap material, or whatever, polyester, whatever it was made of, they would melt down gold. They would melt down gold, and they would use the gold to piece it together, and then they would hold it as a monument, and they would still use it and continue to use it, and gold was very, very expensive in comparison to whatever it was made of, and this kind of like, this shows that that whatever it is that you have, if it's broken, but it can still, it's not a lost cause at all. It's not something that can just be discarded and let it plague you mentally. Things can be fixed, and that's exactly what trauma is, because it's you. No matter what you think of you have no idea what you mean to others, and if you are broken, then all the gold in the world is worth you if it means that you're still around and you're intact, and you know you're going to be worth so much more after. So don't for a single second think that just because like somebody has tried to destroy you, or something has made you feel cracked to the point where you can't be used, it's just giving it's actually just happening to give you the opportunity to be able to feel how much humans are great at building and keeping and preserving what they care about, and they care about you as well. So you know, like, you're worth that gold. So I'll end this with a quote from from Boris. And it says, resilience is a person's ability to grow in the face of terrible problems. So at the end of the day, if you've come across something that's been extremely unfortunate for you, I'm sorry, but at the same time, this is life. This is the life we're living. If you've gone through it, like, there are things out there, there are people out there that can help you to get through things that you don't understand or don't know what's going on, and you're also not the only one. So just remember that just because something has hurt you doesn't mean you're broken forever. You're just gonna get stronger, and you just need time, resources, and people to do that, and that is possible. So just keep going. I hope this has helped, and yeah, no, if you or anyone you know is going through something like this, or you think somebody's going through something like this, try and help them in the best way you can, and go see a medical professional, and they'll be able to give you the gold that you need to fix whatever you feel is broken. Okay, thank you.